Hi, I'm immigration attorney Karlene, and today we're going to talk about, can an E2 visa holder get a social security number? By the end of this video, you will know if you can get a social security number with an E2 visa and what are the benefits in having a social security number in the United States. So if you're an E2 holder, can you get a social security number? Can your wife get a social security number? And what about the kids? Can they get a social security number? We're going to talk about all that today in this video. So you're here with your E2 visa. You just got approved with the USCIS. And the first thing that people want to do is they want to get a social security number. So with the E2 visa, once you get that approval in your hand, you should go to the Social Security office and get your social security number. Now, everybody knows that a social security number is very important in the United States. So what do you need your social security number for? Number one, you need it in order to get your driver's license. So if you apply for an E2 visa, you get approved, you show up at the driver's license office with just the approval without a social security number, you will not get your driver's license. So that is important. You must get your social security number. Now, with the E2 visa, it's a little bit tricky. So you'll get your E2 visa, you'll get your social security number if you're the main person in the application. There are times, though, that your wife or your spouse will not get a social security number, and the children may not get a social security number. Now, why is that? That's just the way the government has organized it. One of the ways in which your spouse can get the social security number is if they apply for a work permit. So you don't need to apply for a work permit if you are the approved applicant on the E2 visa. With that, you will get your social security number. However, your spouse needs to apply for a work permit in order to get the social security number. Now, what about the kids? They do not get a social security number. That's just how the system is laid out, and for now, that's the way it is, and it will continue like that until the government changes the rules. Now, with the social security number, you can get a personal bank account. You can apply for credit if you want to get a loan to invest more money into the business. Of course, with the social security number, you can do many things in the United States. So that's important that you apply for your social security number with the E2 visa. One of the questions that I get often is, can my children go to school with an E2 visa? Are they allowed to go to school with an E2 visa? Yes, they are. So an E2 visa is a legal status. It's based on the parent's status, okay? So if you have an E2, your spouse will get an E2 and the children will get an E2. It's not a different number, it's the same E2. And they can go to school legally in the United States. Usually, most parents want their children in an E2 status to have that social security number, and it doesn't happen. You don't get a social security number for the children. So it's very important that you remember that. Now, there are times, I talked a little bit about the fact that the spouse should apply for the work authorization in order to get the E2. There are times when the embassy will stamp the passport in such a way that the spouse may be able to get the social security number without applying for the work permit. But my recommendation is always apply for the work permit. The spouse should always apply for the work permit, because if the spouse would like to work in a different location from you, the main applicant, who is the approved E person, the spouse can work elsewhere with that work authorization and doesn't necessarily have to work in your situation, your job. Now, remember one thing. Once the children turn 21, you need to switch them out of the E2 status. That's just the law. Minor children are allowed to have the E2 visa, but once they turn 21, you need to switch them out. Now, what happens if they're going to school? Well, if they're going to school, you can switch from an E2 visa to an F visa, and many people do that. Now, when they're done with college and the F1 is over, if they get a job opportunity, they can apply for any kind of visa, a work visa, H1 visa, a different type of visa. But just so you know that children are allowed to have the E2 visa until they turn 21. So most visas that are non-immigrant visas, work visas, they do allow people to get a social security number. And I think because there are times when people think of the E2 visa as an investor visa, and also because it's a Department of State type visa, In other words, you can apply for E2 here, you can apply for E2 outside of the country. That people believe that maybe you don't get a social security number with the E2. But yes, you do. You know, like I've been telling you, you do get a social security number with the E2. It's just that the children don't get the social security number with the E2. And I think that causes a lot of concern for most families, because they want the children to have the social security number, because sometimes they need it for the taxes, let's say. But one way to get around that is probably just talking to your accountant and applying for like a TIN number, the TIN number. And that's a temporary number that the government allows you to have in order to file your taxes. So if you need that, you can talk to your accountant about that, or a tax lawyer, but your accountant should be able to help you. And that way you can get that number for the children. And also sometimes the school will give the students, your children, a temporary number so that they can have that temporary number within the school system. So don't worry about it. It's not going to stop the children from going to school, from studying, if they don't have a social security number. And as long as you have it, your spouse has that number, and you both can work legally in the United States. Because in order to work, you not only need a work permit, you need that social security number. That's sometimes the first number that people ask for when you do a credit card application, when you apply for a job, when you, like I was talking about, when you apply for your driver's license. All of that is important to survive and to live in the United States legally. Well, people also ask, well, what about the children? If they don't have that social security number, will they be able to get a driver's license? Well, they do make an exception there. And yes, once the kids are of the age where they can drive and you show them that they have an approved E2, you have the social security number, they have an approved E2, they don't have the social security number, they can still get a driver's license. So if you're worried about that, don't. Everything will fall in place and you'll be able to work it out. On that note, if you like the information on the E2 visa, I have another video regarding the E2 visa. The link is above or the description is below. Follow us. If you like this video, subscribe to our channel. We have many more videos regarding visas and immigration law in the United States.